Hey, okay, it's time for the WoW news again because stuff's happening. We're about to have a new expansion, so I'm bringing the show back every week. And cool things are afoot today. WoW's getting a new narrative director, so that's pretty big. We're also seeing Blizzard go way deeper on PTR encryption, which straight up is going to be really big for the health of the game in the future. That and a whole bunch more. Even the mounting rumor, based on a leak that predicted Dragon Isles, that we're going to get a new allied race soon, and there's data to suggest that. But of course not as soon as you'll get bespokepost.com/Bellular20, today's sponsor. They're a sub box where you get a wild deal. $49 for what's at least $70 in value, often much more. But what's great is the way that they go about it and the things they put together. You preview what you get beforehand. You can pause, cancel, swap boxes beforehand, meaning you're getting a great deal on stuff you actually want and will actually use. And as for some of the things I've got, well, we've got the Weekender bag. It's awesome. It's in my car right now. I've got this knife and its friends. The rest aren't here in the studio because they're in my kitchen. Some outdoors gear, the whiskey set. And if you want to know what's on now, well, want to brew your own beer? Do you want what you need for a deadly old-fashioned using the Dram kit? Or the concentrate coffee kit? It's got a lovely cold brew maker that comes with this super stylish concrete desk set that I really want, and bitters. I didn't even think about that combo, and now I'm thinking cold brew old-fashioned. Turns out that's a thing. Bespoke Post are the perfect way to get quality fun for $49, helping you start a new hobby, get some cool new gear, or of course the perfect gift for somebody. So head up bespokepost.com/Bellular20, use that promo code Bellular20 at checkout for 20% off your first monthly box. So thanks to them, and let's smash the news. Mystery first. So, story leaking piecemeal isn't great. I mean, imagine for all the FF people if the MSQ got data mined. That would be kind of rough. And as much as Blizzard have made quite a few missteps in the narrative, it certainly hasn't been helped by some aspects of how that story comes out. So I think Blizzard are probably frustrated at that themselves. I think they're also taking on player feedback. And what that means is we're seeing way more of 9.2.5 being encrypted. In fact, the latest build has included 2 splash screens. One for Season 4, which is actually all just like a green, empty texture, and I believe there's another one for 9.2.5 itself. That, of course, is kind of showing that the patch will release before the new season, and with the patch's splash screen being, just not there at all, or, encrypted, I think, perhaps that's just showing that they really don't want to spill the beans on what could be coming. Now, on that, I think there are 2 large storylines, actually. So I think this actually means that there'll be some stuff to get quite excited for on patch day. Now, for what those storylines are, as we know, things are going on in Tirisfal, right? There's a quest that points Alliance players towards basically being able to snoop on whatever's going on there, which I assume is the Horde storyline, and that also involves Kalia. More on her in a bit. Then there's a Queen's Gift cinematic. Now, there's encrypted stuff around that as well, and one of the last things that Taronda said to Alliance players after all the stuff went down with Sovell is that she was going to go home to help her people heal. So, I think those are probably our 2 major plot beats, actually. I think it'll be the 2 of those for Horde and Alliance players, in addition to a short Dark Iron quest that gives them some really cool weapons, and the longer Blood Elf quest we've talked about before. It's pretty neat. Beyond that then, there's also an encrypted armor set. We've got no idea what that means, but it could perhaps tie into that allied race speculation, which would be kind of interesting. And as for what this overall means, look, when a new patch comes out on the PTR, we probably won't be getting key bits of narrative just like in little shreds of broadcast text. Number one, that does actually reduce the chance of there being kind of fake bad faith dramas. There was a really notable instance of this with basically a line, I forgot the specifics, but it was either going to be about Sylvanas or Arthas. One of them was very obvious, but because it was just a shred of data mined text, people kind of took the bad faith thing. Now look, you guys know I'm not one to shy away from criticizing Blizzard, but certainly it's not helpful when the situation is made so chaotic by just all those fragments of broadcast text. So I think this will probably just allow us to sharpen in what actually matters when it comes to game feedback. And as for the stuff with the narrative, like, look, they should be able to ship the story without having a bunch of us lore nerds go in and give them notes in the PTR. I think that's probably going to lead to a few issues. I mean, imagine if patch 8.1 wasn't on the PTR for scrutinization, because 8.1 was a lore mess as it first was on the PTR. So it does open us up for problems like that, but ultimately, if WoW was going to reach its best potential, it kind of needs to not spill all the beans in its test server. So let's hope this one turns out well. There's certainly a lot of good that could happen. Let's talk about the allied race theory. Okay, the Battle for Azeroth saw new Dark Rangers be made, including from Night Elves. That was that funky patch 8.1 storyline I talked about there. Now, by the end of that war, Delarin, that one from the cinematic, she leads the Night Elf group, and many of Sylvanas' own rangers had actually sided with the Horde. We then learned that Kalia and Derek vowed to help these new undead Night Elves work out, well, just what the hell was going on right with themselves. Of course, fast forward a few years, we're in Shadowlands. Shadowlands is done, and Kalia appears to be in that Tirisfal Glades questline that I just mentioned, and that's also something that will be decently cross-faction because the Alliance end up spying, I think, on whatever happens. Now add to this the leak that came from 4chan on the 16th of April, a few days before the reveal. And this leak said, Dragonflight, Drakthir, Invoker, Dragon Isles, it called out a bunch of features, a Q1 2023 release date, and an allied race pre-order bonus. We then think, how the hell is that going to happen? An allied race pre-order? Who's the race going to be? Covenants don't make sense. And then you think about it, what would this new patch be about if it's Tyrande and Night Elves and then dealing with the Forsaken? Oh, it's about elves on both sides. Groups that, of course, were pretty messed up by the events of BFA and what Sylvanas did. Kalia as a character is involved with those elves. And then when you try to think about what allied races would make sense, I think those Dark Rangers are just about all that you've got left, at least for something they could easily weave the current narrative into. So Blood Elves for Horde, Night Elves for Alliance. These will, outside of Death Knights, be the first playable undead elves. People have wanted that for ages. They've wanted to be a Dark Ranger for a very long time. So this just does make a hell of a lot of sense. And it also does make sense of why we didn't see pre-orders open with the Dragonflight reveal. Because they probably wanted to save this for another marketing beat. Of course, if it ends up being the case. Now, there's potentially a bit more proof or evidence, right? So the name Darkfallen, that used to refer to Sand Lane, just those elf vampires we saw in Wrath, and actually in the new Blood Elf quest as well. But as of the Sylvanas novel, that word simply just refers to undead elves. Now, there was another thing floating around where Blizzard added a piece of music that was around the length of an allied race intro quest, which people really thought hard confirmed this almost, but no, it's actually something else. I'll explain that in a minute. But then there is that encrypted armor, right? I also saw some people claiming that new, combat noises have been added. Hard to say exactly, but of course, encrypting all the stuff here does make a lot of sense, because if they were going to do this as a big pre-order, they would want it to be a surprise. And of course, what we know from BFA is that allied races make for very compelling pre-order bonuses for people. Plus, come on, people have wanted to be a Dark Ranger since vanilla, so if they could fit it in, I think it would be pretty sweet. As for that music, well, actually that just got busted with the most recent update to the PTR. So Windrunner Spire now has a few family mementos in it, including a harp. And if you click on that harp, it plays that very same music. Of course, though, that hardly kills the allied race theory, so certainly food for thought. Now, looking at that leak, there's one thing that really does stand out. Of course, I'd say skip this segment using the chapter feature down below in the little play bar if you want to avoid some spoilers. That leak also does claim that Morzond is the villain of Dragonflight. Can we make sense of that? Well, I guess we can, and perhaps if those Darkfallen do end up being the allied race, then it kind of tells us we might be going in a Morzond-ish direction. Hard to know exactly. But I wouldn't be surprised if he was a real villain in this expansion, and I wouldn't be against it. Look, time stuff, I'm a sci-fi guy. I have been for a very long time. I enjoy a good time loop. I enjoy a good time episode. And within a fantasy RPG, FF14 actually has recently done a whole bunch of stuff with time, and it has done it absolutely fantastically. Plus, within the Warcraft setting, it would be a really neat opportunity to visit some incredible locations. Perhaps even the War of the Ancients again, or just any of those other cool moments that have happened. There's really so much Blizzard could do. I mean, think about it, right? For some evidence. First, we powered up the Hourglass of Time in the Timeless Isles in MoP. And when we did that, we saw a vision of Nosdormu's consort being killed by Kairos. So what gives there? I mean, Kairos is dead, but I don't know, something might have happened. Also, the Blood Elf quest that I talked about earlier, that brings back a character called Salandria, and she was in Children's Week in TBC. And during that, she was almost attacked by bronze dragons for what she may or may fail to do in the future. Well, guess what? Now she's all grown up, she's a Blood Knight, and the future is now. Then, of course, when Morzond was defeated in the Endtime dungeon in Kata, his final line seemed to question Aman'Thul. And we're now in a far better position to understand what that actually could mean. Could be interesting. Obviously, time stuff can be a horrendous mess when it's done badly, but I've always enjoyed the infinites in World of Warcraft. I just like this stuff, it opens up some fun potential, so why not? I mean, hey, what if Morzond saw the same thing that Zovaal saw and it drove him a bit loopy? Who knows? Anyway, let's move on to some in-game news. We've got a shred of patch stuff first, so the new Mythic Plus season is actually one that's got me kind of excited. At the very least, Grim Rail, that'll be fun, and a bit chaos, and of course all those mega dungeons moving it into M+. I think that will be quite neat. Now our new affix is here in the PTR, and I like what they're doing in a few senses. So it's called Shrouded, and it sees Dreadlords infiltrate the dungeons, and us help Cartel Ta defeat these Dreadlords. Now, basically, the mechanic is you get to choose a secondary stat, and the broker will buff you for each Dreadlord that you defeat. As for the Dreadlords, they've got a heal, a sleep cloud, a frontal cone, and when you defeat them, you will get a temporary HP and mana regen buff, which I guess means you can just keep on zooming without a pause, which is probably going to feel quite nice. But one thing I do like is the narrativization here. I think it was from Portergage. I saw just some shreds of stuff from the PTR. I think it was data mining. But it's all like implemented in game anyway. But it's basically just this short conversation with the broker where you actually get shown around a new set of portals to the new dungeons. So number one, that's lovely for convenience. But also, it's just this character like talking through a little bit of what's going on. And that's just a welcome touch. It actually makes the new Mythic Plus affix feel like it's something that is happening in the world, right? Like, the canon is that now with this whole fated system, or whatever's going on, these Dreadlords, I suppose now that Zovaal's been dead, I wonder how they'll deal with that, but the Dreadlords are just off infiltrating, doing something. I don't know, but I like the effort. And of course, for this season, I'm just excited because it's breaking a set of dungeons that will feel quite novel to me. So that's great. Now for other things, the PTR is making quite a lot of progress. I mean, we've got the new Mythic Plus affix in testing. They've also started to update the loot tables for the new raid system. Now for more on that new loot system from raids, check out this video that we did a little while ago. It's basically a humongous upgrade, and that's actually got me kind of excited to just see what it feels like. And you know what? It's bloody nice to have some just good, exciting things happening in-game, right? Now, there's a funny thing when we hop over to live, because once again, we've got massive Sepulchre nerfs. Mostly on Mythic, but a few are on all difficulties. And I just bring it up because it's wild how thick and fast these nerfs have came. I mean, seriously, it's been constant nerfs since launch, and in the stream that I do with Matt, we've been trying to work out why, Dakor and our team as well, we've just all been puzzling this through. I mean, even, this is one that I think a lot of players will resonate with, because I know most of our audience are not Mythic Raiders. Were you progressing an Anduin near his first big nerf that happened around the same week that most of us were getting, well, we were getting double Legos, but also our 2 sets. You got all that power, and then a massive set of nerfs. So for our little social guild, the boss that we had touched a bit the previous raid night, post-nerf, just completely fell over. Like, the second damage phase, you know the thing, you do so much damage, you just, like, clamps, like, was it 10 or 20% health? I forget exactly, it was a little while ago. But anyway, massive nerf. And of course, another fan favorite boss, an awesome boss, Halondrus, has been nerfed into the ground as well. A lot of nerfs over the last few weeks. And we're not exactly sure why, because to a lot of players it feels really shitty. You know, especially for those, some of the heroic people, especially the mythic people, who they really want the challenge of defeating that boss, so they feel like the goalpost can be moved on them. But then from Blizzard's side, I have to wonder, are Blizzard just looking at their data and they're thinking, ah shit, no one's completing the raid, what's going on? And then you look at the difference, we did this in the stream last week, of Hall of Fame, Alliance and Horde. And I think by the time the Horde had 100 in the Hall of Fame for Mythic Zoval, the Alliance had like 9. Like, man, pretty damn slow. And yeah, progress in this tier in that level does seem to have been decently slow compared to some other tiers that we looked at. So it's a funky situation. I have to imagine that maybe they just missed their tuning target. Maybe they're really having a struggle with a sort of a situation where those big race to world first guilds, you know, now with all of the buying, I don't mean buying gear, but, you know, the loot trading and stuff and the millions and millions and millions of gold that they're spending, they're able to squeeze like every ounce of possible power that a character could have that they can get. And they can perform at such an incredibly high level of performance. But it's mythic. It's the same mythic that regular mythic raiders who don't have those ambitions would be playing and who don't have those resources. So are Blizzard in this situation, or really mythic is like 2 difficulties? Or then do they just kind of miss the mark a little bit, because normally there is a nerf to WoW content every single week. It's called getting gear, so evidently that hasn't been enough here. I don't know, maybe it's just the case of the delta between the average mythic raider and what those Race to World First guilds can do when they fully just, you know, completely go mad. Maybe that delta's just got bigger and bigger over time. Honestly, I'm not really qualified to talk about the subject, but let me know if you've got any insights. Next then, a few highlights for Wrath Classic changes. Wrath Classic then. Man, I am hyped to go back to the glory days. So Wowhead recently interviewed Brian, who is the lead for Classic. Here's a bit of a TLDR, right? No Dungeon Finder, we already knew about that. By the way, with that, they don't mean, I think, the in-game LFG tool, the sort of shitty one that's there in TBC and Wrath. They mean the automatic one. So that's not there, but they are looking at how they can improve the group finding experience. So I'm very keen to see how that will play out. Are they going to try more things with chat channels, or will they perhaps add the pre-made group finder in, or maybe just upgrade the LFG one to be a bit better? Hard to know. Anyway, then raid lockouts. So Wrath is a really funky time for World of Warcraft, because the amount of difficulty modes that the game had started to balloon. And I remember, was it Trial of the Crusader, where people really started to feel like they just had to run so many difficulty, different clears of the raid in 1 week. It was quite a new problem in Wrath because of the higher number of difficulties, especially when they decided to make heroic just a difficulty mode instead of an optional thing on a boss you're already doing, like they did in Ulduar. So they're basically, Blizzard are looking into, for Classic, how they can kind of slow that down or reduce the number of required runs that people have to do. And also, in line with how things were back then, race and class changes won't be there for Wrath Classic. But they are trying to find a fantasy-forward way of balancing racial, so that is good, and then this also touches on faction imbalance, which is something they're very aware of, especially with Wintergrasp. So I'm not really sure how that can be a solved problem, and obviously those faction disparities have been humongous on TBC Classic. I mean, as an example, for Alliance PvP, because Matt and Jared and our team have been just dabbling in TBC Classic a bit, they either go on a server that's like almost all Alliance and has, like, I think it's like 4,000 plus queues at nights, or they're on another server where Alliance is minority and nothing else is really possible. So it's a wild enough situation. Now, another thing, dual spec, it will not be restricted from launch, which is a departure from Wrath's launch, but I think a very welcome one. So good stuff so far. I just think, though, about how Towley was kind of hinting that they were really going to go far with things in Wrath Classic, and I just kind of wonder what that could mean, or how far they'll push it. Anyway, time will tell. I guess I should also mention there's been beta stuff going on. I believe, was it July, August, had been sort of penciled in as a rough date for the beta test of Wrath Classic. And I think with that being said, very much I am expecting Dragonflight's alpha. Look, if it happened in the next month, I wouldn't be surprised whatsoever. And in a bit of a surprise, World of Warcraft is getting a new narrative director. Yeah, it's a pretty major new job post that Blizzard have dropped over on their careers site. Now, this person will report to the creative director, who seemingly previously had all the responsibilities that this new job role is going to have, in addition to, I assume, to other things. And without reading into it too much, I think it makes sense. WoW's in-game storytelling has had ups and downs, let's just say, and it's relied on books to fill in the gaps, like with Sylvanas, especially for character motivations. BFA was a total shit show. Shadowlands is kind of the pinnacle of just, boring and then storytelling. Blizzard often has really good ideas, but the thing is they just really mess up the implementation. And then there's the often funky problem of sometimes it just feels like the cinematics and the books and the game aren't really in lockstep with each other. So perhaps then this new role existing will allow for the creative director to do their work better and for all of that to be better implemented across the various forms of World of Warcraft media, I would say hopefully especially in-game. Now, according to the listing, this new person is going to be guiding the narrative evolution of WoW's world, cultures, and characters. They're going to communicate the story vision across the development team. They're going to balance moment-to-moment narrative with planning and execution of narrative arcs that will span multiple years. And it's that last part that's really key to me. They've totally fucked that up in BFA and Shadowlands. It's okay to admit that. Think about Legion. It was so much fun to do lore speculation, and while it had its blips, it was an exciting moment-to-moment story that we could all follow nice and easily. It was a good balance of all of those things, and then it went screwy after that. So I guess if I was to try to think of the most reasonable and boring explanation for WoW's problems lately, a narrative anyway, it's probably too many cooks, combined with organizational chaos, split responsibilities, all just, what a big office can be like. I think that's how it ends up being a fragmented mess, so let's hope that this role existing shows Blizzard just understanding they need an operational solution to the problem. Thinking of FF14, a really huge strength of their narrative is in-depth planning and a relatively small core writing team. So there's really no wonder that equates to a focused story that managed to pay off what it actually sets up. I suppose I would hope here with this job role that, wow, maybe they're doing more things. They feel like they need a larger team. Hopefully then, with more staff helping in the direction, they'll actually be able to get better results out of the team that they've got. Only time will tell, but it's at least nice to see some investment in this area. Okay, remember when CurseForge got acquired by Overwolf? That was quite a drama. People didn't like the idea of using Overwolf's overlay to get the Curse client, right? That led to many competing add-on managers appear. Azure, which I think is not really being updated right now, I'm not sure. WoW is another one. It's a great one, I think, actually almost all of our team uses. Now all of this then led to a whole drama over the CurseForge API, because the third-party managers were pulling from the API, which of course was incurring cost for Overwolf, and it was also bypassing the whole creator economy thing that Overwolf have going that actually apparently leads to add-on authors getting paid, which I think is pretty good to support the great work that they do. But anyway, this has all led to API version 2, where creators can basically choose if they want distribution outside the CurseForge ecosystem, which would tie into their remuneration. And then the new API has basically got terms of service that I think limit things down a bit so that the bandwidth and cost problems that Overwolf say they were having are mitigated somewhat. And then to make the whole thing a bit more appealing for end users, CurseForge can be used without the Overwolf overlay. That's a lot better. As for the other add-on managers, it's not like they're dead in the water. They can still pull from GitHub and Wago. I mean, a good example, WowUp. Like, you can just one-click install ElvUI and keep it updated from that, which I think is a pretty awesome feature. Anyway, there's just been this ongoing low-level drama. I think most of you probably won't really have picked up on it or seen much of it, but there's just been a feeling of a lack of stability, I think, in the add-on space. It's led to a few little spats, some add-on creators being a bit worried about things. But at least now, I think we could be moving towards a position of there being some more stability and clarity, which is definitely good. And finally, TWIB. This week in Bellular. TWIB. It kind of flows with squib. Pretty weak. Well, unless the Infinite Dragons let me time travel back to change the name of this whole shindig, we are unfortunately stuck with it. Okay, what have we been doing? Well, in video land, we covered how 9.2.5 looks to update Azeroth, and just before that, I talked about who our new end boss could be, and also the gearing overhaul to WoW. So that's a bunch of WoW content for you. Over in our variety channel then, I've got 2 SWTOR videos. One of them covers my playthrough of the latest expansions content up to endgame, and then another one is just on the funky state of that game, the funky state of its endgame, and all the weirdness. Over in our news channel then, there's a lot of content to keep you busy. Valve have been sued for antitrust. Yeah, kind of wild. EA are sending their all-around game savior, Vince Zampella, and his team in Battlefield's direction. I've been playing Battlefield for similarly long to World of Warcraft. Actually, maybe I played Battlefield a little bit before WoW. Yeah, I think I might have anyway, but that means a lot to me. Some hope would be nice. Also, Sony's latest subscription offering is, it's a bit weird for some people. For me, who didn't buy a bunch of PS5 launch games, it's a stupid value. We've got Bethesda delaying major games, including Starfield, which I'm very much looking forward to. Live services having a fun time. We dove into just some crazy shit going on there. And then, oddly enough, this weird rotation we're seeing in the shooter market away from the sorts of game modes that I used to play while I was playing WoW. I mean, had my computer set up here, and I'd wheel my chair around to face the TV to like play some COD and Halo, because that's what you did when you were my age at that time. So a lot of content. Also, a massive thanks to everybody who showed up for the Pale Beyond's demo event. The stream went really well, and everything went really well on Steam. Us and our publisher are really, really happy with how things have went there. We've seen the wish lists go up a really large amount. The feedback that we've got has been absolutely fantastic, actually, which is, phew. Yeah, I mean, absolutely, it's not a game with extremely like broad appeal. It's not like we're like, hey, we're going to the shooter market. But I'm beginning to think, yeah, this is really a game that's actually going to find its audience, and that's just been so galvanizing for the team. Since that event, if you want a bit of an update, a lot of bugs have been squashed, and the team are making excellent progress on the remaining milestones in the project. So it's all been going great. And I guess just, yeah, your support with all that was really fantastic. Things outperformed our expectations. And really, that's it for today's video. So the WoW news is back. In future weeks, we'll probably have more spicy things to talk about as beta, alpha, etc. all goes on. Till then, I would just say thank you for all your support. A big thanks to Bespoke Post for supporting us with today's video. And based on doing this stuff for Bespoke Post, a cold brew, old-fashioned, that's like totally my little weekend project now. I'm going to do that. So thanks to them. Thanks to you. See you next time.